Before we get into that instant batik, I'm going to show you the finished dress that we worked on last week. You know, I told you that I had bought a pattern and bought the fabric, and then I realized that the pattern was not right for the fabric because this fabric doesn't stretch as much as it should. And I thought, well, you know, I'll be able to take care of that. So I put a zipper down the back of the collar, as I showed you the other day, and then I tried it on. And I couldn't even breathe because it was so tight, because this is intended for stretchy fabric that stretches more than what I had. So I decided, well, I can't throw the dress away, and I don't know anyone else who would be able to use it, perhaps, so I just let the seams out as much as I could. On the sleeve, for example, instead of stitching in 5/8 of an inch, as I had done to begin with, I released that seam, and I got an extra 1/2 inch in each direction there. And then down the front of it, I released this seam, and I had to take the collar off to do so, but I released the seam, and that gave me even more of length in the cowl neckline. And also, I decided that cowl neckline was just too long for this kind of material, so I cut about 3 inches out of the cowl neckline so that it's not quite as droopy and drippy as it was. It still comes down to a very nice point in the back, and then I went ahead and reinserted that zipper, and then the front of it is a little bit more drapable than it had been before. Now notice this seam, which is not only down the front, but I had to do exactly the same thing on the underarm seams to release those as much as necessary. And now after I had stitched them, and they're only stitched about 1/4 of an inch, well, let me turn it up here so you can see it. They're only stitched about 1/4 of an inch in from the cut edge of this. After I had done that, then I turned both seams in the same direction and top stitched. I've seen that done often on ultra suede dresses and things of that type, and it makes it look very nice, I thought. So then the dress fits very well. Now I put 2 rows of stitching across the bottom of the hem in the blouse, and also 2 rows of stitching across the hem in the skirt. But I was very glad, though, that I could sort of relieve the situation. Now, the skirt was fine. This seemed to fit with the seams in it, just as they were intended to be, without any alteration. But the top of it now, I can breathe in it, and I like the neckline better. So if you run into that problem, now chances are you won't, because you'll read your pattern better than I did. But if you run into that problem, it certainly is a good idea to know how you can remedy it. I did this one time with a suit that I made 2 or 3 years ago when those stretchy patterns were first coming in, and I thought, I've just ruined all this material. But by releasing the seams, I had a dress that I've worn and worn and worn and really enjoyed. So don't despair. There's always a way that you can correct your mistake. Well, now let's go on to talk about the batik. B-A-T-I-K is the way this craft form, or this textile term, is pronounced. It's very, very old. It comes to us from Persia, or it comes from that part of the world in India and so forth. Now let me show you what I'm talking about. Maybe you've seen this, maybe you've done this, but the Oriental people for a long time have been using a waxing process in which part of the fabric is covered with melted wax. Paraffin is a good thing to use. And then after that, through a process of dyeing and cracking, and you see the wax is cracked over here. This will allow some of the dye to penetrate the fabric and go, but yet it cannot penetrate all the fabric. Now let me turn the page so that you can see more of the patterns in batik. It's a very intricate process that can be done with many different patterns available, and here's some of the others. Now I want you to look at this particular type of equipment. You just wouldn't happen to have one of these in your house, but if you'll go to a store and ask for the batik applicator, you'll be able to get one of these, and it allows the wax to be put into this implement, and then it flows from the point, and this will allow the wax to come down on the fabric itself. Well, I'm going to be doing some of this week. Now you need to start with either cotton or wool or linen fiber, because those natural fibers have more of an affinity for dye. It doesn't work too well on synthetics, so start out with either cotton or linen. Those two would be best to use. And if you'll get that and just some regular dye, liquid dye or powdered dye works equally well. Have some paraffin ready, or you can use liquid wax, the kind that gets hard. If you'll have some of that ready, we'll start working on it tomorrow. Now let me show you another example. Now this is not real batik. This is just something that looks like like it, but I brought this down for you to see. This, I'm sure, is just printed, but you see, this is what the real batik looks like. And you can imagine that this part of it was all covered with paraffin or melted wax. And then when that hardens, you crush it, and then that will allow the dye to penetrate other areas of it. And then this one was dyed twice. It was dyed first with that gold color or orange color, and then it was dipped again, and the brown color covered up other areas of it. So we'll try to get into that on our program for beginning tomorrow. And then I found these that I did many, many years ago. Now, this is done with crayon, and this would be a real easy thing for some of the younger people to work with. So let me show you this process and also the other process on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week as we try to work towards some things that would be interesting to do and to give for the holidays. But let me save time now to make a really good peanut butter pudding, and it's really going to taste like a candy bar because we'll put on top of it some good chocolate sauce. During this holiday season, you're going to be depending on superior flavorings for lots of your baking, especially the rum and spice. Now, you'll find that that's so good in sweet potatoes and pumpkin and apple dishes. Now, you can find superior flavorings at many grocery stores in our area, especially the Gamble's food stores. But if you'd like to order one of these directly from Superior, send $2 for each 8-ounce bottle to Superior Products, Post Office Box 542, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28230 for Superior. Instead of using chocolate sauce on the peanut butter pudding, you could just put a blob of Old Virginia grape jelly on it, because grape jelly and peanut butter really go hand in hand, don't they? But do use Old Virginia. You know, it's the one that doesn't cost any more than others, but it gives you so much more quality. This is made without any preservatives whatsoever. It just has that good flavor that you really like. Now, look for the word Old Virginia, not only on grape jelly and jam, but all other sweet products. Old Virginia.